Kimber. She's here with us today to talk about rhythms of wellness, master your day. Um, the workshop is a transformative practices to your daily routines, and it's rooted through Ayurveda. To guide us on the journey, we're honored to welcome our guest speaker, Kimber. She's an Ayurvedic health coach with over a decade of dedicated study and experience through Ayurveda. She's cultivated a deep understanding of how building a strong foundation through mindful diet and lifestyle choices can pave the way for a long and healthy future. Kimber's passion for Ayurveda and her ability to connect ancient wisdom with modern living make her an inspiring guide to us today. She will share her insights on how the principles of Dinacharya daily routines can empower us to bring balance, vitality, and wellness to our lives. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Miss Kimber Jones. Hello, Kimber.
Hello. Thank you all so much for being here, and thanks, Carrie Ann, for the warm and wonderful welcome. So I now am going to share my screen, and we can jump right in. Everyone see that slideshow okay? Fantastic. Thank you. Well, as Carrie Ann said, I have been studying Ayurveda for over 10 years, and that was not by accident. So if you're here, then you're probably interested in Ayurveda or have a loved one that has told you about Ayurveda and maybe pestered you about the things that you should be doing. But I wanted to share my story because I feel like it makes it relatable. Instead of these just being a list of things on a screen, you can hopefully see these are things that actually have really healing, powerful capacities. So I was a junior in college in 2012 roundabouts, and I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So, 21 years old and being told by a gastroenterologist that I was going to be taking steroids every day the rest of my life. Doesn't matter what that does to your bone health, doesn't matter what that does to your gut microbiome, your skin, don't worry about it. You have to. It's the only way. And that no matter what I did, I would have to surgically remove my colon. So here I am, a junior in college, 21 years old, being told this is what's going to happen to you, as if I didn't actually have any connection or say to my own body. And I just felt so powerless. I knew that there had to be another way. I knew that that wasn't the only answer, what was being offered to me. And so I had a really good friend in college whose mom was kind of a holistic dietitian. And so I did this crazy thing where I ate nothing but chicken soup for a month and my gut got better. And I said, huh, okay. Obviously, eating nothing but chicken soup for months on end is not at all sustainable, but it was evidence to say there are other things out there that Western medicine wasn't giving me the full picture. And so I dove headfirst into holistic health. I did Reiki and acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine and saw naturopaths and hypnotists and any weird hippie woo thing out there, I tried it. And the one thing that worked, that helped me understand why I had an autoimmune disease to begin with, address the cause, put it into total remission, was Ayurveda. So I've been in complete and total remission since 2017. No symptoms, no pharmaceuticals. The last time I got a colonoscopy, the physician said, I don't know why you have a diagnosis. Your colon looks like a healthy person's. So I share my story to say this can be your story too. And you don't have to have a big, scary diagnosis like I did. Even if you just have really strange, annoying symptoms that Western medicine can't explain, or you just want to live a little more vitality and energy and vigor, Ayurveda actually works. So I hope that you can take some of these recommendations and the ones that light you up and feel exciting, and you just get that kind of gut hit of, oh, yeah, I probably should be doing that, and actually try them. So that's the second thing that I feel like is really important to talk about before we get started. I know exactly what you're going to do. There's going to be two, maybe three camps of people. So the first camp is the camp that I fell in, of folks that are so excited and so on board and just hungry for knowledge and are taking all the notes and doing all the things. And their expectation is that they can go do all of this perfectly tomorrow. And then when that inevitably doesn't happen, they're going to be frustrated and give up that they didn't implement absolutely 100% perfectly. Even though they were so gun ho, they had the best of intentions. It's too much too soon. There's also another camp of people that are going to say, oh man, that's really interesting. And they're going to listen attentively and they're going to make some mental notes and say, oh yeah, that one sounds good. Maybe I should try that. And then those notes are going to fall to the bottom of the pile. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by. You've not gone back and looked at them. You've not actually done anything different, but you still have that really good intention. Oh, yeah, maybe I should go back to that Ayurveda workshop and look through those notes again and try some of that stuff. But it always just stays there, good intention without any action following it. Or maybe you're the type of person that also gets really excited and wants to do it all, but doesn't stick with anything and tries one thing one day and then takes a week off and then says, oh, yeah, randomly I'm going to try this other thing. But no, that wasn't really exciting or new anymore. So maybe I'm going to try this. This is very Ayurvedic, and especially if you came to Rosa's workshop on the doshas, these are kind of the personality types we see show up in Ayurveda. So I say all of that to say, I hear you and I see you, and let's do this better. So, one of the things when I work with private clients with Ayurveda that I really, really stress is how to build healthy habits. Because so many of us know what we need to do. I'm sure all of you could say, well, yeah, I probably need to go to bed earlier and drink some more water and exercise more. It's not a lack of knowledge that's the problem. Sometimes it's just knowing how to actually implement a change in your lifestyle. So, regardless which one of those camps you fall into, I hope that these really simple recommendations will be helpful. So, if you're the first type that says, oh man, I'm going to do all of this and I'm going to do it tomorrow and I'm going to be perfect forevermore and I'm never going to mess up, I invite you to not bite off more than you can chew. If you have this fiery go getter personality, it can feel really easy. Just want to work hard and put your head down and do the things. And even though it's not as flashy and shiny as and exciting, the medicine for those folks is to do a little bit less. Small, consistent change over time is always going to work so much better for building habits than having one big push and then falling off the wagon, one big push and then falling off the wagon. Be much better to take one of these habits we talk about today and implement it consistently over time, as opposed to say, okay, I'm going to do the whole thing, and you do it one day, and then you don't do it for a week, and then you do the whole thing, and then don't do it again for a week. So slow, steady, consistent change. This is also where a lot of New Year's resolutions fail, since we're also in that time of year. People think they're just magically going to change everything overnight. Our brains are hardwired against change. You have to do it slow and steady. The other thing to keep in mind is aim for a B minus. You don't have to be 100% perfect 100% of the time because that's going to make you 100% stressed out about it. If you aim for 80% implementation, 80% of the time, doing most of it, you're still going to see massive, massive results. You're going to be 0% stressed about it. And it's also going to make it so much easier to be consistent over time. The last bit of advice, this is from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which I also highly, highly recommend if you're into this, trying to change your healthy lifestyle, is to never miss twice. So you're aiming for 80%, which means, 4 days in a row, you do a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and then, Saturday comes around, the whole routine falls off the wheels, you don't do anything. Maybe you feel really guilty or bad about that. What you have to do is just get back on the horse. So the next day, get back to the thing you're trying to implement. Because if you skip twice, now you're building momentum in the direction of, well, I'm just the kind of person who doesn't do what I say I'm going to do. Instead of putting a drop in the bucket for, oh, I'm the kind of person that sticks to what I want to do, even if it's not perfect or even if it's not all the time. It's almost like you're placing a vote for what kind of person do you want to be. So put your vote in the bucket of, I am consistent and I'm trying, and it's not going to be perfect, but I'm doing it. Whereas if you miss twice, you're putting a vote in the bucket of, I don't actually do the things that I know will make me healthy, and I'm not as consistent as maybe I thought I was. So vote accordingly. It's important. All right, so actually into the good stuff. What is Dinacharya? Why is it important? So Dinacharya is basically the daily routine according to Ayurveda. So Ayurveda says we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. As outside, it's going to be reflected within. So that means Ayurveda has a lot to say about rhythms, daily rhythms, seasonal rhythms, time of life. And as one of my Ayurveda teachers, Dr. Lod, says, how you live your life is the key factor in determining your health and your quality of experience. It is also the factor over which you have the most control. He's also quoted as saying something to the effect of, it's not enough to do the right thing, you have to do the right thing at the right time. So it's kind of become popular in, pop psychology and the Instagram holistic health world to stick to your morning routine, have your morning routine. And maybe it's like 27 things long and you have to, get sunlight and put your feet on the ground. And there's some things that seem good and there's some things that just seem a little bit ridiculous to me. But the good news about Ayurveda is it's over 4,000 years old. It's the oldest continuously practiced form of health and wellness in the world. It's stuck around because it's the real deal. So all of the suggestions that we'll talk about today are things that are just like we talked about. Which way are you voting? What bucket are you putting your drops in? We're putting a drop in the bucket for future health and wellness and prevention of disease. Ayurveda strongly believes that diet and lifestyle are the best preventative medicine that we can possibly offer. And as Dr. Lod says, they're the things that you have the most control over. So why not take the time to establish yourself well day in and day out? So just to give you an idea of where we're going, there are 10 things on this list. Before you get overwhelmed, remember, slow and steady wins the race, even if it's not shiny and exciting, and we're aiming for a B minus. So what I don't want you to do, you fiery go-getters out there, is to say you're going to do all 10 of these things every day starting tomorrow perfectly. That's not going to set yourself up for success. So take what works, take what inspires you, leave the rest. You can always come back to this and always add on as needed. Just using myself as an example, have been living an Ayurvedic lifestyle for 10 years now. I don't do all of these things every day. I don't do close to all of these things every day. The daily routine shifts based on the season, shifts based on what is going on in your life in that particular moment and what you need. This is kind of just the good template, and you get to customize this to where you are and what feels right. Because the beauty in Ayurveda is it's totally individualized. This is kind of bare bones, what works for most people. But once you know your dosha, once you know what season it is, a lot of this can be tinkered with and toyed with. So, jumping right in. Number one, waking up early. So, back to that rhythms piece. Ayurveda has so much to say about keeping a rhythm to the day. The easiest way to do that is to follow the rhythm of the sun. So waking up early generally means roughly when the sun comes up. If some of you out there are saying, oh, but I'm just a night owl, your body would say differently. Your body would say you've trained yourself to be a night owl, probably with screens and probably with artificial lighting at night. But if you ever gone camping, you notice how you get so much tired out in the woods as soon as the sun goes down. It's almost like you're resetting that circadian rhythm. We are supposed to be animals that are awake and alive in the middle of the day and go to sleep when the sun goes down. So, simplest thing you can do is just attune to that rhythm. So, right around sunrise, like I said, there's a little bit of variability there, but that's kind of a good touch point. And if you really want to get in the weeds in this, we're talking about daily routines starting in the morning. But if you're going to wake up at 6 or 6:30, that means you have to be going to bed at a reasonable hour. So your daily routine almost starts with the night before. Are you eating dinner early enough so that you can go to bed early enough so you can get enough sleep so you can actually wake up when the sun comes up? And then you see it's just like this circular snowball. It all just ties in together. And all of these habits influence the other habits. So ideally, you can get up early and you feel rested, you feel awake, alive, ready to go. If you don't wake up feeling that way, maybe you work with an Ayurvedic practitioner to improve the quality of your sleep or address any deeper imbalances where you're just feeling depleted and low. Also, a little caveat. I'm presenting the items the way that they are taught in the lineage of Ayurveda, which I have learned, which is Dr. Laud's, but I've changed the order slightly. So know that the order here can also be adjusted. So Ayurveda believes that you're only as healthy as your digestion. You're only as old as your digestive capacity. You're only as healthy as your digestive capacity. So Ayurveda has a ton to say about digestion. I mean, that's why it helped me with my colitis. And that's why I think Ayurveda kind of separates itself from other holistic healing modalities, is really that it can really tune in and focus in on supporting the digestion. So when your digestion's firing on all cylinders, when things are going well, when everything's working as it should, having a full, complete bowel movement pretty early in the morning is like gold standard. And my hope for all of you is that you can become gold star poopers because it is life changing. It is so, so great. So here's another one. If you feel like having a bowel movement in the morning is out of reach, a hard thing to get, that's something that you could dive into with an Ayurvedic practitioner to address why elimination isn't happening on a regular cycle. But an easy way to kind of hack your body is to just drink a cup of warm to hot water in the morning. And this water doesn't go towards kind of your daily consumption of water to keep you hydrated. This one is just kind of flushing the system, flushing the pipes. It's just going to go straight through you. And so in Ayurveda, we never really suggest drinking ice cold water or like frozen super cold food and beverages, hardly ever. But in this particular case, having some warm water in the morning is going to trigger peristalsis. So peristalsis is when your intestines start to squeeze, which is how they move things along. So a section will squeeze, which then pushes material down the colon. Then the next section squeezes and pushes it down the colon. So you might have actually felt this internally before where you're like, oh, stuff is moving in there. So the warm water is what triggers peristalsis. It's been very common recently to say, have your warm water with lemon in the morning. If you like lemon, go for it. Definitely watch the enamel on your teeth. If you have tendencies to be a fire breathing dragon, prone to acid reflux, if you're that go getter, get stuff done type, maybe lime would be a better choice. You might notice that that lemon water first thing in the morning just comes right up, which is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to flush things down and out. So some other tips for being a gold star pooper: can use a squatty potty or elevate your feet up on something low in front of you. That just puts your body in the right shape to really allow that bowel movement to pass with a little bit more ease. And that alone can be a game changer for some folks. I also love to recommend some pooping superfoods, as I call them. So beets are always going to be a super, super gentle laxative. Chia seeds that are soaked in any sort of liquid, cooked apples as well. The pectin in the skin of the apples is really helpful. And then Ayurveda has some wonderful herbs and other things up our sleeve if not pooping regularly is a challenging thing. The other thing to note here is letting this water be the first thing into your system in the morning. So I know this is challenging for the coffee lovers who halfway awake stumble into the kitchen and make their cup of coffee, and that's normally the first thing hitting your system in the morning. So just not saying you can't have your coffee, I don't try not to take away things that people love dearly, but maybe just have your water before you have your coffee or tea or caffeinated beverage. And ideally, you're training your bowels to evacuate from that warm water and you're not having to rely on the caffeine, which is a diuretic, to get things moving. But if this isn't your normal situation, if you're not ready to just wake up and head to the toilet, this is where we can switch the order of things a bit. And maybe while you're waiting on your bowels to wake up, you start to do some care for your sense organs. This is something else that really I think is powerful about Ayurveda in a way it individuates itself from other healing modalities, is it cares so much about our senses. And the reason that's important is this digestive capacity that I mentioned, and I'm sure we will have a full event, if not multiple events, on digestion and what Ayurveda calls Agni. It's responsible for not only breaking down the food that you eat, but also everything you take in through your senses. Everything you hear and see and smell and taste still has to be broken down by that digestive capacity. So, another way we care for our digestion is caring for our sense organs. But Ayurveda also says one pathway to disease is underuse, overuse, or misuse of your sense organs. And so, if this is something that's interesting to y'all, also something that we can dive into deeper in future events. So, this is kind of just 30,000-foot view, and I'll give you an idea of some of these practices. But definitely, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we can go more in depth in the end. Or if it's something I can address in the moment, I'll do that too. So, eyes, what works well for most people is just splashing them with some cold water in the morning. There are a couple more targeted remedies that work for the specific doshas. Maybe like a rose water wash could feel really nice, or an Ayurvedic herb called Triphala also makes a really wonderful eye wash. But just cold water first thing in the morning promotes some circulation around the eyes, reduces the puffiness and inflammation from sleep, just waking stuff up. Then a lot to say about oral health. So the unique one to Ayurveda is tongue scraping. Hold on one second, I'm going to grab mine. All right, we have props. So, tongue scraper, you can also just use a metal spoon. This does not have to be anything fancy at all. And just first thing in the morning, from the back of the tongue forward, just pulling the gunk off. It's possible that you might have a thick coating. It might be white, it might be more yellow, it might be more brown on the tongue. If that's something that's a regular part of your experience, I would definitely chat more with an Ayurvedic practitioner about why that is. But maybe just 6 or 7 gentle pulls down. You're not trying to like scrape off your tongue, you're trying to scrape the stuff off of your tongue. I should also note that if you are switching around the order and doing this before you try and have your bowel movement, tongue scraping is going to be the most effective before you've had anything to eat or drink. So that's a nuance. If that's a hard thing to keep track of, don't worry about it. Scraping your tongue is still going to be a helpful practice. You're still getting out that gunk that's built up there. This actually is a really gentle stimulation for the digestive organs as well. Ayurveda would say every organ in our body is mapped on our tongue. So, and just a cool way to check in with yourself and see what your tongue looks like. And that's something we can dive into more too. So, tongue scraping, brushing, and flossing, pretty normal. Everybody knows those are a good idea. I'm sure we all go to the dentist for our cleaning, get told we need to floss more, but hey, here's another person telling you need to floss more. The other Ayurveda recommendations are oil pulling. So that's taking something like coconut oil or sesame oil, maybe a teaspoon or two, swishing it around the mouth. Just, it's a really strange sensation if you've never done it before. So start small and just know going into it, it might feel weird, but it's what I love about Ayurveda. There's some weird stuff in it, But hey, what we're doing in our modern society to take care of ourselves and care for ourselves isn't working. What works is this ancient stuff. It's been around for that long. So Ayurveda is weird until you try it and you do it, and then you realize it works, and then it's not weird. So maybe that's your intro to the weirdness. So when you're doing your oil pulling, you're getting all of the bad bacteria into that oil. So you'll spit the oil out. Note here, not into the sink or the toilet. You want to do this into the trash because you don't want to clog your pipes with that oil. And then you can either rinse your mouth out or maybe really gently brush the teeth again just to get that excess oil out. And you can maybe even rub some of the oil into your gums. It can feel really nice. The other Ayurveda one is chewing seeds. So white or black sesame seeds. This is also really great for gum health, teeth health in general. To be 100% honest, I've never tried this one. This one isn't part of my daily routine. Maybe Carrie Ann or Audrey can speak to it at the end, but it is in there and it is, I trust Ayurveda. So moving on to the next organ is our nose. So Ayurveda loves oil. There's a joke that any bodily orifice, Ayurveda has an oil for it. This is going to keep you hydrated. Most of them are antimicrobial or antibacterial. Ayurveda was developed in India, which is more of a tropical, humid climate, but it still applies really well in places. I'm in Western North Carolina that can be dry or cold. Having a nice, warm, oiled barrier can just be really insulating and really helpful. So, Nausea oil is the practice of oiling and lubricating the nose, the nostrils, and the sinuses. Another one, you're like, wait, you're telling me to snort oil? I'm telling you, you're going to love it. So, Banyan Botanicals is my favorite supplier of Ayurveda oils. You can get this there. You can also order this from the Ayurvedic Institute online. Or it doesn't have to be a fancy thing that you buy. You literally can stick a pinky in some coconut oil or some ghee and just swoop on the inside of the nostril. Totally start there if this one feels intimidating. But this is really great for anxiety, insomnia, preventing seasonal allergies, congestion, basically any maladies above the collarbones. Throw some oil at it, it's going to be helpful. So if you are going to do the actual nausea oil, the application is important because if you do this wrong and it slides down your throat, you're going to hate it and curse my name and never want to do it again. And I don't want that to happen to you. So I do this leaned off the edge of my bed. So your head is really, really far tilted back. And then this oil just has a little dropper. I'm just going to drop 2 or 3 drops into each nostril. Really hanging out far back. Let gravity just draw that oil back into the sinuses. Give it a minute or two, and then take a deep inhale through the nose. And start just like rubbing the sides of the nostrils, just getting stuff absorbed and nice and in there. So you can do this one in the morning. You can also do this one in the evening. It seems like folks who love it really, really love it. So give that one a shot, or maybe give some of the other ones a shot first, and then eventually you work up to some nausea oil, but promise it's cool. So now you've cared for your sense organs. Maybe now you're ready to have a bowel movement. Or if you've already had your bowel movement, to move on to another lovely Ayurveda oil practice called Abhyanga. If a Sanskrit word like that is hard to keep track of, just write this down as warm oil self massage. So, all the benefits of oil that I mentioned earlier keeps you hydrated, is a nice barrier between you and the outside world, really calming for the nervous system, just some good old self-love. So many benefits to this practice. It's probably my favorite Ayurveda self-care practice, and for a lot of my clients, it ends up being their absolute fave. So for this one, you're going to take about 2 tablespoons of oil, And the oil ideally is warm. So you can have a small bottle of oil you stick in a saucepan and some water on the stove and just warm it up. Maybe you have a mug that you fill with hot, like tea level water, and then stick your bottle of oil in there. I'm an Ayurveda nerd, so I have a baby bottle warmer in my bathroom that works super well. It's $10 on Amazon. You plug it into the wall, put a little water in it, and it just warms up the water. You can put your oil in there. So this oiling is really to cover as much of your skin as possible. So long strokes on the long bones, circular strokes on the joints. If you're feeling a little ungrounded, a little anxious, maybe starting at the shoulders or the neck and working your way down. If you feel like you need a little pick me up, things feel a little heavy, maybe you start your feet and work your way up. But your feet are a very important area to do. And you can cover anywhere in the body that feels nice. I try and avoid the head and the scalp on a normal day because anyone with hair knows oil in the hair is just a whole thing. But you can do the neck, the face, getting under here where these lymph nodes are can feel really nice. And so the goal here is not that you feel like super gross, disgusting, oily afterwards. Ideally, this is going to absorb into your skin, and we're going to help that with a shower. So it's not always possible, but if you have the time, you would lay in a warm space, just letting that oil absorb for a few minutes. I know that's not always realistic with our busy schedules, and mornings are a hot commodity as far as time goes. But then getting in the shower, watch your step as you get in the shower. You don't want to slip now that you're a little bit oiled up. And on days that you do this, you don't want to use a bunch of soap. You don't want to wash off all of that lovely oil you just put on your skin. But the idea is the warm shower opens up the pores and your skin can start to absorb that oil. Sometimes if I'm in a rush, I'll just put the oil on me while I'm in the shower. Also, be aware of your plumbing here. So, if you're doing this regularly, once a month, every couple weeks, pouring some boiling water and some Dawn dish soap down the drain works wonders. Just to make sure that oil isn't building up and clogging up your pipes. So, if you are a person that runs hot, if you're more of this fiery, intense go-getter, maybe a coconut oil would be really nice for you. If you're a person that always feels cold, if your hands and feet are always cold, sesame oil can feel really nice. And this is another one you can talk to an Ayurveda practitioner about specific herbal oils that are really lovely. But another good one that just general works for most folks, Banyan Botanicals sells a daily massage oil. It's got kind of a lemongrassy scent. That one's really, really nice as well. Also, when we say sesame oil, that's not toasted sesame you get from the Asian section of the grocery store. This is just plain old, unmessed with sesame you'd get from like the beauty self-care section. So, a couple other notes here. If you are a woman, you want to take a pause on this practice while you're menstruating. Pick it back up after your period ends. And also be aware of your towels. I have towels that are oil approved towels and towels that are oil not allowed to touch towels. um, just, be careful, be mindful when you're drying them. And if there's oil in the towels, you just don't want to start a fire or anything like that. So use common sense, use caution, but super, super amazing practice. You can do this up to daily, but even once a week will be really, really helpful. Maybe aiming towards 3 times a week is that good B minus place to start, but it is just oh so lovely. Every time I do it, inevitably, I just release this huge sigh, just without even trying. My body just kind of like releases and lets go and just like soaks up the goodness. So, highly, highly recommend. So then having your morning shower, getting all nice and clean. Our body detoxifies a lot overnight, especially between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So a shower is one way to just kind of like also clear the stuff. And a lot of folks, when they think of toxifying and detoxifying the body, they think of, oh, well, that's the food I eat. But The two biggest organs of toxing and detoxifying are actually the skin and the lungs. So, another good reason to pay attention to your skin with some Abhyanga. And then dressing in fresh, clean clothes. I love that Dr. Ladd specifically mentions that. But not putting on yesterday's underwear, I suppose, is probably a good habit. So Ayurveda would say next to get some exercise in. And this is another one where the order can change a little bit. Because I know for me, if I'm going to get sweaty and have a good workout, I'm going to want to shower after that, not before that. So, like I said, all of this is adjustable to you and what makes sense. But a general good guideline is Ayurveda says exercising in the morning, specifically between the hours of 6 and 10 are when it's going to be the best for you. And so, also depending on your dosha, what that exercise looks like might be different, but it can really even just be 20 minutes, just breathing, getting some fresh oxygen, some fresh prana into your body can really just be that kind of button you press to start the day right. So if you are more of a easygoing, just like nurturing community type, prone to maybe feeling a little sluggish, a little more exercise is going to be great for you. If you're kind of the spacey, energetic, prone to anxiety type, you're probably the one that loves like jogging and cardio and running and stuff, but a little more grounded, slow, steady would be helpful for you. And if you're that fiery, intense go-getter type, you probably love a challenge and physicality is no different and you want to do all the hard things. You don't always have to do all the hard things. You can go for a walk. You can swim in some cool water. That's totally helpful as well. And then moving into the yogic practices, Dr. Ladd recommends doing some sort of yoga asana, so the physical postures, some pranayama, which are breathing exercises, and some meditation. But what I've found over the years is just having a placeholder in the morning for some sort of that spiritual connection, whether that's reading something inspirational, a sacred text, maybe that is just taking a few quiet moments with a warm beverage, just listening to the birds sing. Just that moment of tuning in and slowing down really sets the stage for the rest of the day well. So I'm a yoga teacher and practice Ayurveda, and I'm not doing a full-blown yoga asana pranayama meditation practice every morning. But there are folks associated with the Ayurvedic Institute that I know that do like the full 45 minutes of pranayama every morning. So basically, do what works for you. This isn't a chance to berate yourself or feel bad about what you're not doing. This is an opportunity to lean in and say, what does my body want? What does work for me? And doing the thing that makes sense consistently is always going to be the win. Consistency over shiny and exciting every time. And then that kind of concludes the daily routine morning section with breakfast. And we could, I'm sure, get into food choices and food combining and timing and all of the wonderful, the art of eating that is Ayurveda. But just knowing by this time, you've done all the prerequisite things, your body's probably ready to receive nutrients after you've had a little exercise, after you've passed a bowel movement. Now is the time to break the fast. All right, cool. Couple other considerations of just as we move throughout our day, because Dinacharya is, the daily routine. So it doesn't just end with this morning routine. What are you also thinking about throughout the day? What timing in the rest of the day makes sense? So Ayurveda would say our digestion is strongest in the middle of the day, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So making sure you have a meal there, preferably your biggest meal of the day. It hurts my heart when people say they're doing intermittent fasting and their eating window is like 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. not doing any favors to your digestive capacity. Not skipping lunch. Even if you're not hungry for breakfast, you don't have to eat breakfast, but hopefully you're building up some level of hunger, some level of your body saying it's ready to receive in that middle of the day section. As far as dinner goes, then if lunch was kind of the main affair, dinner can be moved a little earlier and a little lighter. The senior citizens are really onto something when they have that early bird special, but kitchen closed by about 7:30 is what is going to feel best for most folks. So that you can have a solid 2, if not 3 hours between dinner and bedtime. We all know how gross it feels to go to bed on a full stomach and you wake up, that coating on your tongue is probably really thick the next day. Maybe you feel puffy, your joints feel inflamed, you didn't sleep well. So this is another one. Aim for 80%. If you go out with friends and are enjoying their company and dinner doesn't happen till 8:30 one night, it is not the end of the world. We're going for consistency as opposed to perfection. And then after dinner, maybe it's time for a little more movement. Maybe it's time for a walk. A gentle walk after any meal is always a great idea. But this 6 to 10 p.m. time frame is kind of more connective, family, just bring it all together type time. So if you're familiar with the doshas, this is kapha time of day. And then if we're thinking about starting our Dinacharya for the next day, how we end that day makes a difference. So earlier bedtime, making sure you get plenty of sleep, especially before 10 p.m. can feel really nice because then you get that full detox period from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. But certainly before midnight, sometimes maybe you can push it to 11 p.m. and feel okay. But we all know we feel better when we go to sleep earlier. That doesn't make it easy to implement all the time, but we know it's in our best interest. Other things to keep in mind as you move throughout your day are to not suppress urges. So if you have to burp, if you have to pee, do those things. Ayurveda would actually say that holding them in could potentially eventually cause imbalance. So make sure that you're taking care of your body. These are all ways that it communicates to you about what it needs. And we talked about meal times throughout the day, but we also want to limit snacking in between meals if possible. I know for some folks that can feel really, really challenging. So don't worry if that one feels like a really big ask out of reach. Maybe that's one that you address eventually, or just count your wins when you can get them. And also limit being sedentary. So a lot of us now have jobs where we just sit in front of a computer screen all day, getting up every hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, and just moving a little bit, taking a walk around the block, doing a couple downward facing dogs, jumping on a trampoline. I mean, whatever it is, just so you're not contributing to your whole day, feeling like this just slow, stuck, sedentary energy. Little movement bites throughout the day can be really, really helpful. So, kind of in the same vein that we've been talking about, you don't even have to have some big, intense hour-long workout every day. Maybe just little bits of movement throughout the day is more accomplishable and super supportive for your physiology. So, those are kind of the through the day things. And see, really quickly, because we're doing okay on time, I'd like to talk a little bit about how this routine can change a little bit with the seasons. Because, like I mentioned in the beginning, all of Ayurveda is all about rhythm, has so much to say about what's going on outside of us. So, as it is January and we currently find ourselves in winter, seemed like the place to start. So winter can feel dry and cold, but also potentially heavy and stuck. So we want to introduce a lot of the qualities of warm and moist, but also a little bit of grounding and building. This is the time to go internal and hibernate and build up your stores, build up your energy, get you ready for the year ahead. So what that means is it's totally okay to sleep more. If you put your kids to bed at 8:30 and you're tired, you can go to bed at 8:30. There are no rules that tell you that is not okay. For some reason, we want to just push through and say, "Oh, I'm so tired," but then, you want to clean the kitchen or you want to watch a show. And then all of a sudden you get this second wind, maybe around that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. time frame. Never trust the second wind. It means you've blown past your body's messages of when it's actually tired. And now it's kind of in this clean house mode that was supposed to be happening while you're asleep. And all of a sudden you find yourself deep cleaning your closet or something ridiculous. So when you're actually tired, actually go to bed. It's so simple, but we ignore it so often. Another area we want to pay attention to is our ears. So if you're doing the daily oil massage, adding some oil to your ears, just another pinky swoosh, can feel really, really lovely. And when you're going out in the cold, blustery winter, really making sure your ears are covered. So wearing hats, scarves, headbands, your winter accessory of choice, because that's one sneaky way that winter energy, Vata dosha, if you're familiar, is going to get into the body and start to wreak havoc. So we just play a little defense and take the ears off limits. It's also the time of year when, believe it or not, our digestion is strongest. So this is, the quintessential meat and potatoes time of year. So things can be a little bit heavier, a little bit denser. You have the digestive capacity to digest them this time of year. So lots of good healthy fats, lots of proteins will be your friend. Ayurveda always recommends eating fresh and local and in season as often as you can, but knowing that if there were a time of year for the more heavy, dense, rich sort of eating, which, everything in balance, this would be the time of year you could do that. Looking ahead towards springtime, spring can sometimes feel really moist and watery and almost congealy and sticky. I like to think of the visualization of there's still snow melting on the ground, but you see this little plant pushing through, and that plant has to work so hard to overcome the inertia of all the water and winter's heaviness holding it down. But underneath it, that plant has this fresh, new, vibrant life. So we want to be the fresh, new, vibrant life even though the weather outside still might feel sticky, slow, sluggish, damp. So your mantra in spring is light and bright, more movement. So to help clear that excess water element, sweating most days, saunas, if you love them, would be great in springtime. And also, maybe that water is going to end up in our sinuses, congestion, seasonal allergies, in which case I love the neti pot as an option. So you can get these online or from any health food store, and you're going to be mixing warm. Very important that it is warm. It feels awful if it's cold. It feels awful if it's hot. So warm water with salt. And it's very important that this is really high quality water. I will only use this with like distilled water that I buy or water that I've already boiled. Because when you do this practice, you're sticking this into one nostril, tilting your head to the side, and all of that water is going to circle through the sinuses and drip out this way into the sink. Super gross, super satisfying to get all of that gunk out. So ideally, if you're already congested, you wouldn't use this. You'd probably find an herbal remedy that kind of gets some of the gunk out, and this is kind of cleaning up afterwards. But ideally, it's a great preventative. So getting into that habit more regularly in springtime. And things to note, if you really end up liking the Nasia oil, the lubrication of the sinuses, you don't want to do these back to back, even though it's really tempting to like, okay, I'm going to clean it out. I'm going to get the bacteria out. That salt is antimicrobial. I'm going to get out all the gunk. And then I'm going to, lubricate it and keep things nice and clean. You want to actually put some space in between these. So maybe you do them on different days, even, or at the very least, give yourself some separation, a good hour or more before you go to your Nasi oil after cleansing with the neti pot. But another weird one that's super great. And sometimes next in spring, that kind of like slow, sluggish, sticky energy makes you just want to sleep more. Winter was our time for sleeping more. We want to resist the urge to nap in the springtime. Instead, be a little more active, a little more enlivening, invigorating, some pungency to our diet and lifestyle. When we move towards summer, summer feels hot, sometimes sharp or intense. We want to be calm and cool and relaxed. So it's not the time of year for really intense physical exercise or big competitions. Time to take it easy. If you're someone that runs hot or maybe has fair skin or skin prone to redness, really protecting yourself from the sun in the middle of the day, that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. time frame can really, really get you. So wearing a hat, having a really high quality sunscreen that doesn't have crap in it. And the best way to get this calm, cool, relaxed qualities is cold water. So go for a swim, go for a dunk. Super refreshing in summertime. I'm lucky enough in Western North Carolina, we have a lot of streams around. As we learned during Hurricane Helene, there is a lot of water in this part of the world. So using that to your advantage, even if you don't live in a place with mountain streams, local pool, a cool bath, moon bathing is another way to get kind of that cool, refreshing energy into you in summertime. Then to fall. When fall comes around, sometimes we feel like the leaves on the trees were dry and crunchy and shriveled up, and we fall off the tree and we just get caught by the wind and we have no roots and no grounding, and we're just at the mercy of air moving around. So to prevent feeling like the dry, crunchy leaf in fall time, we want to introduce things that are warm and moist and stable. So that oil massage is great all year long, but fall is the time when I really lean on it heavily to prevent that dried out quality. Is just moisturizing myself with that warm oil and staying hydrated, making sure you're drinking your water throughout the day, not that ice cold water, but room temp. Or you can even honestly sip on warm water throughout the day. Your digestion and your body would really, really love that. It's a great time to have soups and stews and crock pot meals, things that just a little bit more of that moisture and liquid quality, things that get that long simmer before you eat them as well. They're nice and congealed, and all the ingredients know each other really well before they enter your digestive tract. And sometimes fall can be busy and a flurry of activity with back to school or traveling, or just seems like it can very easily be a busy time. To find this kind of grounded, steady quality, really leaning into routine and consistency and stability in the fall wherever you can will help prevent, more of the anxiety, insomnia, just kind of racing, ungrounded, fearful thoughts that can be a little more common this time of year. All right. That is all of the goodness that I have for you, but I'm super curious to know what you are still curious about, how I can help you, what questions I can answer, what things weren't clear. Totally open to chat about whatever it is that you are interested in.
Thank you so much, Kimber. I'm going to go ahead and read this from chat. There's a question that says, for purposes of people whose professions require a nocturnal lifestyle, are there any suggestions for specializing lighting or other equipment or supplements to stimulate a more natural day-night cycle? That's a really great
Mm,
one.
super great question. So a few things come to mind. So it's become a little more common knowledge now the impact of different colors of light have on our bodies. And so blue light is one that increases cortisol production, which it's very natural for folks that are awake during the daytime to have their cortisol spike in the morning when they get up. And a little healthy amount of cortisol is good to like get you going and get you moving. What we want to avoid is chronic and overexposure to cortisol. And blue light seems to be something that contributes to that. So that's not saying like oh, just a light bulb that is actually the color blue. That actually means the blue frequency that we see in light. So if you are someone that has to be up at night, they have blue light blocking glasses. And also, almost all of the modern tech now has settings that you can have either a blue light blocker, or sometimes it'll say night light or red light. There's some way on most screens now that you can limit a little bit of that blue light. And then also, the easiest and most natural way is to see the sun. So if you work night shift and then you're trying on your days off to be not a vampire and be a normal human again, I would say seeing sunlight first thing in the morning, that's the easiest way to get your circadian rhythm back on track. And also seeing the sun set or go down. It's kind of, I don't know, it seems stunningly simple almost, but there's even like modern science research that backs this up. You show your body sunlight and it figures out what to do with it, which, you know, Ayurveda is ancient. Our bodies are ancient. We don't have to make it more complicated than that. But the other thing I would say is if you are working during the night, you have to have really, really strong digestion to be able to eat meals at nighttime. So, working with an Ayurveda practitioner to make sure that your digestion is super strong and super on point to be on that opposite schedule. There's some teas, some herbs, some things you can do to be supportive. And then when you're trying to sleep through the day after you've worked a night shift, it's kind of the opposite. Then you want to remove light. Then you want to get some blackout curtains. Then you want to get some sort of like eye mask sort of situation so that when you are sleeping, your body does think that it's actually nighttime. But yeah, super, super great question.
Thank you for that. Anybody who wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, you're totally welcome. Or you could post one in chat and I will read it for you. While we do that, I did have a question because this is the time of year, Kimber, where people are on the mindset to start losing that winter weight that we've been gaining for the last couple months. So that, like you had mentioned, the intermittent fasting was one. Keto is another. What do you recommend to continue to incorporate that mindset, but do it a little bit more cohesive with the rhythm of the body?
I love that. Yeah, I have a lot of clients that I'm working with exactly this thing right now. So Ayurveda, I mean, the truest answer I can give is it would say in winter, it's not really the right time to try and have like a lightening or scraping or reducing effect. This is our time of building. So if you are thinking about losing the weight, I would say let this be your time to build muscle while we're still in deep winter, because that's what your body is going to be most suited for this time of year. So getting your resistance training in, whether that's body weight or weight exercises, your body's going to respond to really well this time of year. And then when that spring transition comes around, more like March, April, then start to really increase your activity. Um, Walking, dancing, swimming, moving, just moving more is really going to be helpful then, because springtime is the time when your body wants to lighten, wants to reduce, wants to shed, wants to take what was holding us down in winter and keeping us really grounded and cozy and shed that and begin anew. So also consider possibly doing a springtime cleanse come March or April can also be really helpful. And folks find that doing a cleanse resets their digestion, resets their hunger and satiation cues, and can be really good kind of like flip the switch starting point for that sort of journey. The other thing I would say is just be mindful of what you are eating this time of year and make sure that it's still quality foods. You're still getting vegetables, even though it's January. You're not, still eating the Christmas cookies. We're all guilty. I get it. But I would say, yeah, focus on building muscle and healthy diet choices. And then let that serve you well when spring comes around because it's also scientifically supported now. The more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is. And it's almost easier to lose weight once you have more muscle. So start there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I wouldn't
Yeah,
have considered weight training in the winter and then like cardio and high interval training in the spring. That's so smart. I love that. Okay,
thanks.
we had another question. How about hair health? Any recommendations or is collagen a good idea? So what are your recommendations for hair health?
Great question.
Hmm.
I know Carrie Ann or Audrey, jump in here if you know, but the Ayurveda practice of Abhyanga, of oiling the skin, can be super healthy for the scalp and the hair. And there's a specific oil that's best for it. Bringaraj, maybe?
That's true.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's the
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if you're curious, we can find a link to that and drop it in afterwards. But I made it out like it's a big, messy ordeal, but if you're worried about hair health, it's a really luxurious practice to oil the scalp, let the oil sit in. I've even done it before where I wrap my head in one of my oil towels and then sleep in it overnight. You just want to make sure
Hmm.
your head isn't going to get cold, so you really want to keep it like wrapped really well in the towel and then wash it out the next day. Pro tip, if you do oil the scalp, your tendency is going to say, okay, well, I want to wash this out with shampoo in the shower. Put the shampoo on your hair first before you get it wet. Oil and water don't mix. So if you put the shampoo, it's going to actually connect to the oil molecules first and then get it all in there and then rinse it out. It's going to be way easier to get the oil out. But any sort of, even without oil, just like scalp massage for circulation is really,
Hmm.
really helpful getting in there, things like that. Making sure there's not a ton of constriction on the head, making sure that your glasses fit correctly, that you don't have really tight fitting hats or headbands or things like that will also be helpful.
Right.
As far as collagen, so Ayurveda, maybe this is a little bit of my bias too, is pretty anti-supplement. It's more how do we get the good stuff that we need actually from our diet and from our food. So collagen in and of itself is super helpful and super supportive. What I would say is make you some bone broth. Don't go get like a dried processed collagen powder from the store that your body doesn't actually know what in the world to do with. Make a big old thing of bone broth and then sip on a warm cup of bone broth. Oh my gosh, it is divine. It is lovely. It's amazing. Would highly recommend. And it's the most natural source of collagen you could possibly get.
It's really great. Thank you very much. Any other questions out there from the participants? Okay. Well, if you do, go ahead and pop in, just unmute yourself or type it into chat. I'm going to say thank you very much, Kimber, for being here today. That was very informative and perfect timing for the new year and getting going and feeling good about just enjoying the rest of the winter and the slow and the stability of the season before getting into spring and using spring more to our advantage as a jumping off point to make any big changes. And thank you for understanding that it takes a while to incorporate new things into a routine and to take it slow, pick a couple things. I think that's also very helpful to remember, and that goes with everything in life, not just your daily routine. So I appreciate you for that knowledge. And everything was so beautiful and relatable. If you guys would like to reach out to Kimber here on this last slide, she's got her website, which is mokshayogawellness.com, mokshayogaavl@gmail.com. She's also on Facebook and Instagram, and you can do what your discovery calls are free, like 15, 20 minutes, just to kind of figure out where you're at on your journey. to help with quality of sleep, digestion, pooping, just all the normal things that you may need a little support with, maybe some good brainstorming ideas and how you can incorporate a little bit more health into your future. So please reach out to her. I would like to say thank you for being here and being a part of our group, and being a member of our meetup, Ayurveda Collective. Upcoming, I have a four-part series of pranayama that's coming up. It's in every other week on Tuesday night. You can find that on our meetup group. Please share any of our events. Please reach out and let me know if there's anything that you would like to hear us talk about or present. We're open to suggestions. Again, if you know of anyone that would like to be a guest speaker, I would really be grateful to hear some of your ideas there. At the end of our meetup, we would love to have you review our talk today and our collective as a whole. I would really appreciate that. If there's no other questions, I think we can let everyone go early. Thank you very much, Kimber. I appreciate you so much. You've been such a beautiful delight today, and I will hope that you'll come back and speak again.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. I truly enjoyed it. So thanks for making this space. Thanks all of y'all for being here. Thanks for your great questions. And I look forward to staying connected and witnessing your health journey. So happy New Year and thanks again.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for coming, and have a great day.